Well, despite the many horrific accounts from the front lines of brutality and atrocities being committed by the Hamas terrorists, Michigan Congresswoman and squad member Rashida Tlaib appears to still be backing the lie that Israel was behind the Gaza hospital blast. She's refusing to believe that Israel is not behind the explosion, and that's in the face of tons and tons of evidence. This is despite the findings of Israel and the United States, and according to our intelligence, that the blast was caused by a misfired rocket from Palestinians' Islamic Jihad terror group. Tlaib is now calling for an independent investigation. Posting this, media outlets and third-party analysts have raised doubts about claims and evidence offered by both Israel and the Gaza Ministry of Health, that's Hamas. And I agree with the United Nations that an independent investigation is necessary. Let's bring in Florida Congressman Jared Moskowitz, who has been a leader, perhaps one of the strongest voices in the Democratic Party on this issue. You know, Congressman Moskowitz, you tweeted that your Democratic colleagues who blamed Israel should take down their post, and Ilhan Omar did that. However, far from taking down the post, Rashida Tlaib is doubling down. Should there be some sort of punishment? We know Congress has the ability to censure should Republicans ever get a House Speaker.
Thanks, Kayleigh. Thanks for bringing this up and keeping this on the forefront. Look, Congress is unified in its support of Israel. I continue to be disappointed in members of Congress who are not willing to listen to U.S. intelligence and listen to the Biden administration, who have said Israel had nothing to do with the issue that happened in the parking lot of the hospital. Let's not remember, the hospital wasn't hit. The hospital is still there. It's the parking lot of the hospital. That was the first lie that was told. The second lie that was told was that over 500 people died there. There's no proof of that. And the third lie that was told was that it was Israel. All of those things have turned out to be inaccurate. U.S. intelligence is saying that. And any member of Congress who continues to trust Hamas's information over U.S. information is obviously deeply concerning.
You know, Congressman, Article 1, Section 5, I believe it is, gives Congress the power to punish, censure, reprimand. Are those things that should be considered for those who want to propagate terrorist talking points?
Oh, listen, I think once we get a House Speaker here, I think that censure resolution will come to the floor. And I do think it's something that everyone should consider. This is about U.S. intelligence. This is about U.S. information. This is about not willing to trust the Biden administration and U.S. intelligence, but instead continuing to pretend like the Ministry of Health out of Gaza is nothing other than a terrorist organization telling people what we want to hear. We just heard the leader of Hamas talking about genocide. I mean, good God, it is propaganda to the 10th degree, and people have to stop buying it, and they have to listen to the facts.
And the media needs to stop propelling it, as we've seen from several outlets.
Kayleigh, it's been disgusting. What happened in that hospital issue with the media was disgusting. It exposed all sorts of anti-Semitism. I guess we can dispel with the lie that Jews control the media. If that were the case, you wouldn't have seen the media blame Israel and Jews all across the world. We had protests in the street. We had the president's meeting being canceled because of all that. And oh, by the way, when Hamas said it was Israel, everyone took Hamas's word for it. When Israel said it wasn't them, they had to show satellite imagery, audio, they had to show footage, they have to show the pictures of the crater. Why does there continue to be a double standard when it comes to Israel? We know why. It's because people are anti-Semitic in the world.
They are. And, you know, Congressman, to that point, so your predecessor, Ted Deutsch, was a strong, unequivocal voice for Israel, much like you. But back in 2019, in the wake of Ilhan Omar, she had an anti-Semitic trope that she put forward. There was a clean bill to condemn anti-Semitism, but instead that could not get through the House. Instead, a bill condemning all hate went through the House. And your predecessor, I want to play this. This is what Ted Deutsch said 5 years ago.
We are having this debate because of the language of one of our colleagues. Language that suggests that Jews like me, who serve in the United States in Congress, and whose father earned a Purple Heart fighting the Nazis in the Battle of the Bulge, that we are not loyal Americans? Why are we unable to singularly condemn anti-Semitism? Why can't we call out anti-Semitism and show that we've learned the lessons of history?
Well, in terms of learning those lessons, yesterday, the White House press secretary was asked about anti-Semitism, and she said there was no credible threat. And then, rather than just condemning anti-Semitism, changed it to be about Islamophobia. I want to know your thoughts as to why this keeps happening, what you make of the press secretary's remarks yesterday.
Well, first, it's good to see my predecessor, Ted Deutsch's comments then. Ted was a steadfast ally of Israel, still is today as president of the AJC, but his words still ring true in this moment in the aftermath of October 7th. Look, well, you've been the press secretary, Kayleigh. You know, I understand there's a press briefing book. I understand there's lots of topics. I understand you got to look at it. But when someone asks a simple question of, is the White House concerned about the rise of anti-Semitism? It's a simple yes answer. By the way, I know the president is concerned. That's why there's an ambassador to anti-Semitism. That's why there's a task force to anti-Semitism. That's why the first gentleman has been working on anti-Semitism.
But why didn't she do it? Why didn't she just say, I condemn this, full throttle?
That's a great question. I mean, look, she clarified her comments a couple hours later and put out a statement. But that's a great question. Why we had to look at the briefing book to answer a simple question is, are you worried about the rise of anti-Semitism? And look, yes, Jews are hyper-focused on this. We are looking at every single solitary period and comma because we want it to be unequivocal. I'm very happy she clarified her comments. It's important. President Biden's been very strong on his support for Israel, and the American people have also been very strong on a bipartisan basis with our #1 ally in the Middle East, our friend Israel.
Congressman, last question from me, and I think my colleague may have a question, but you've put forward bipartisan legislation that would actually enforce those sanctions against Iran. What level of support are you seeing in the House for that?
Well, it passed the committee. So we passed the committee in our first markup just last week. So there is dramatic bipartisan support to make sure that Iran can't continue to sell oil to China, which then allows them to take that money and give it to Hamas, give it to Hezbollah, right, to continue to expand their reach in the region in Iraq and Syria and in Lebanon. And so Iran is the world's largest sponsor of terror. There's no doubt that they are watching what's happening in the Middle East in addition to just funding, but watching it operationally. And look, Secretary Blinken was crystal clear today. Should Iran decide to get involved in this war through one of their proxies, the United States military is going to respond.
Congressman Moskowitz, it's Harris Faulkner. Real quickly, you know, we've been reading reports that after the New York Times couldn't get its act together and used Hamas as its single unchecked source. Hospital never hit, it was the parking lot. Hundreds killed, those numbers were not verified. The evidence is all there as you laid out. So my question is, if that was enticing and inciting for people to go out into the streets and yell things and threaten things in this very country, how enticing and inciting do you think it will be for members of Congress to say those very things from the high perches of Capitol Hill? Will you do more than just say, well, could you clarify that? Because it's a bad look for everybody, and it potentially endangers lives of not just people who are Jewish in our communities, but everybody.
No, Harris, listen, it's a good question, and I've been doing it. I've been doing it before October 7th. I'm doing it after October 7th, not just with the bill I have with Congressman Lawler on Iranian sanctions, but I did it with Nancy Mace trying to deny the Iranians coming to the United Nations.
But did you go up to Rashida Tlaib? Did you give her a little education?
Oh, listen, there have been many conversations with folks within the caucus that have a wide-ranging disagreement on this issue. I can assure you those conversations are happening all the time. They are lively, but at the same time, Harris, we might not be able to convince everybody, and that's why it's important that all 435 members, if it's 430, if it's 425, if it's 415, if it's 410, it will be a dramatic bipartisan basis. Listen, that resolution that 400-plus members have signed on to Congress expressing their support for Israel, that got more. The only thing that gets more supporters than that resolution is the quorum call vote. So I am very confident on where Congress stands on Israel.
All right. Congressman Moskowitz, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.